Hey there, this is the Caregiver Spirit, and today I invite you to begin again with me. I've been holding on to this idea for a while, this urge to share, to speak, to create something that feels honest and real and nourishing. And I've had some hesitation, and maybe you've been holding to something as well. A feeling, a question, a longing, something that you are trying to embark upon, even though you're experiencing the deep grief and turmoil of the caregiving journey. So this is where we begin, not with a perfect plan or a polished launch, but with presence, with truth, with the courage to show up just as we are. I'm MA. I'm a caregiver. I'm a creator. I'm a woman in midlife trying to figure out all the things, trying to make sense of it all in some way. And for the next 21 days, or however long this journey may take us, I'll be sharing what I call spirit sessions. These will be short reflections, moments of grounding, little truths from this caregiving life that can sometimes feel too big, too quiet, or too unseen. And if you're here, listening, watching, you're breathing, you're showing up in your own beautiful and perfect way, then you're already doing the thing. You're already beginning. So thank you for being here with me, for caring, for choosing to start today, and then tomorrow again, and the next day, and the next day. Even if it feels unsure and tender, even if you're tired, know that you're not alone. You never were. So let's begin. This will be my 5th episode of this podcast, and I'm really proud of the first 4. They're there. Go check them out. But I really had this yearning because I had a pause in recording, and I thought, how can I get back into it in a way that really feels like a ritual space for me, a place of reflection and a place to open up the doors to anybody else who needs companionship in the dark and in this brutal, unrelenting, and also incredibly illuminating journey of caregiving. I want to give a special shout out to anybody out there in the ALS community. You're close to my heart. And to all the other caregivers out there, anybody who wants to support a caregiver, and honestly, anybody who is in a capacity where you're feeling like the overwhelm is extreme and you want to find a place to begin, to feel grounded, to feel companionship, maybe to laugh a little bit together, maybe cry a little bit together, then this is for you. A lot of the work that we do will open up so much, so many emotions, and it's this really incredibly fertile ground for deep transformation because you're faced with things that are so outside of the ordinary that it just urges you and often demands that you reinvent who you are. And in that reinvention of who we are, we may lose a lot of the sense of who we actually were. And so a lot of times we feel like we're kind of existing in this gap. There was the before caregiving, and then there's the after caregiving, which has a big question mark and also comes with a lot of its own grief. But we're sort of in this in-between, kind of like a void, this in-between space that honestly sometimes feels like a limbo. And so the idea of beginning anything new that is truly aligned with who you are and giving yourself the space to be you, to call yourself back, can bring all these waves of guilt, of frustration, of anxiety, of unworthiness, of confusion, not to mention the fact that we are already so tired and so compromised emotionally that the idea of giving our energy to anything else seems already overwhelming as it is. But here's the thing. When we don't allow a portion of our energy to actually be brought back into, I'm going to say, the rediscovery of who we are within the space of caregiving and who we're being transformed into, then we're missing out we're missing out because we're only going to lose ourselves further into that void. And I dare say we will miss the incredibly fertile opportunity to get to know ourselves in a way that is quite remarkable and to find the strength, not just in the caregiving, but in the soul, like who we are that is being pulled from us as we go through all these trials and tribulations and challenges. So today, begin where you are. I'm beginning where I am. I wanted to record this yesterday. I had full hesitation. I messaged a friend back and forth, and she was helping me. And it's remarkable because I love starting new projects. It's one of the things I've always loved to do. As I've been caregiving for my husband for the past 5 years, starting new projects has had this different kind of flavor because there's always this lingering question of, will I be able to sustain this? How long will I have to dedicate to this? What will it look like? What if I want to do something and certain days I just can't show up for it? What if I feel guilt for doing things that are sort of my own, and I've outgrown some of that guilt for sure, but there's always something that lingers there. And so I'm guessing that if I'm feeling that, you probably are too. And one of the things I have found really interesting over the past handful of years it hit me probably more around like year 2, let's say. The first year I kept working, I kept doing my thing as I blended in with caregiving. Then the second year, the caregiving got a little bit more hands-on, took more of my time. And so I wanted to dedicate that time. That is the priority of what I hold right now, is to care for my husband, to care for my son, to care for myself. And so I took sort of a break from creating things. I did more of sort of intimate creations that maybe filled my cup a little bit. And then there came a moment when I was like, okay, I want to go embark into something new. And before that looked like sort of tracing a vision of a certain project that I wanted to do. And this could be something at home or something related to the world of the business that I had before, my coaching business. But I felt a lot of hesitation around starting because when we're caregiving, especially when we're caregiving in the realm of ALS, there's always this sort of ellipses, this like ... of how much time is there? How much time is there in a certain moment of time, like the break that I might have in between caregiving duties? How much time do I have with the person I'm caring for? And so how much time until my life changes again? And that I found was something really tender that I had to work through. And I did. And like I said, I've been caregiving for a while now. And there's one thing that I know for sure is that as I say all of that, we can round it out into that it's easy, so easy to lose ourselves while we're in the center of everything swirling around us. As caregivers, especially those of us who do the main caregiving for our person, we are the heart of the operation. We're the motor. We're the foundation on which everything else stands. And while we're caregiving, we are also running a household. We're parenting. And we're supporting other people in our family in different ways. We're supporting ourselves and all the things that come with life. And then on top of that, we're living through times that are quite frankly overwhelming on top of the overwhelm. And so sometimes I wonder for myself and caregivers out there, how are we even doing during these times when beyond the uncertainty that we have at home, there's so much uncertainty and so much pain happening out there, very, very close to home. And so I'm not going to dwell too much on that because I really want this to be a space where we are holding ourselves and really focusing in on who we are. But I can't not acknowledge that all of the noise and all of the chaos and all of the turmoil that we are seeing and being exposed to and being fed all day, every day, is also going to really affect us, affect our nervous system, affect our spirit, affect our emotions. So it also makes it harder to begin. Something I find interesting in myself, and maybe you will too, is the belief that I have to wait until I am organized, until I'm healed, until I'm inspired or less exhausted before I can begin something for myself. But that's a lie. And of course, this is a very nuanced conversation. But the truth is that we can begin now with a breath, with a whisper, with this one small moment that belongs to ourselves. And that is what can open up the door to the other ways that we will then continue to unfurl and discover ourselves. So perhaps you're listening to this in the car, or you're folding laundry, or you're hiding in the bathroom for a moment of silence. We've all been there. So this is an invitation to land, to arrive, to take a breath and say, I'm here. We don't need a certain script. We don't need a plan. And we don't need to be certain. We don't need to prove anything to anybody. And we don't need to hold on to the things that we think we have to hold on to, which is an interesting question to ask ourselves. What are the things that I think I need to hold on to that I really don't? I bet you that you're probably taking on more than what is actually being required of you at this time. What is being required is already a lot in the space of caregiving and 24/7 love and support to the person that we are there for. So what are some of the other things that you think you have to take on that are siphoning away perhaps the energy and the space of vulnerability to be with you? And as I say that, I think about this idea of the vulnerability of being with ourselves, being with myself, being with yourself, and to think about that for a moment, because I often find that because our energy, our time, our spirit feels so fragmented, at least mine does, it's fragmented all the time. If there's ever a moment of pause, rare as they may be, I sometimes fill it in with other things. Why? Well, because it's uncomfortable to sit with the emotions that might flower within me, or because I just want to numb out and not have to think about anything and not have to feel anything. And when I catch myself doing that, I always make sure to pause and take a breath and remind myself to really land in the moment so as to not escape myself. Because when we do that, then we're basically like storing away all this emotion, all this energy, all of these things that actually need to come out. And we're storing them away. And that in itself will build a different kind of pressure that feels then even more insurmountable when we actually do want to sit with ourselves to contemplate feelings. And I think it can also be easy for some of us to sort of delay the feeling of feelings. And again, there's that question mark, that sort of open-ended question of the length of time that we're going to be caregiving. And I say that a lot because in the world of ALS caregiving, time is always a question mark. And so many of you might really relate to that. Let me know if you do. So this series in this space and time is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about the spirit of the caregiver. It's about your spirit, not just what you do, but who you are underneath it all. And over the next 21 days, like I said, or however long this sacred experiment takes, I'll be sharing experiences and thoughts and some themes and topics and even journaling prompts that are designed to basically create a space for us to give ourselves some companionship. And to be perfectly honest, it's also an experiment. It's something that my soul really wants to go through. Doesn't need to go through it. Maybe she does, but she wants to go through it. I want to do this. I've been wanting to do this, to really dedicate a good chunk of sacred time and energy to this space. and to have it feel like a soft place to land for myself, also a place of purpose, because I've learned, and maybe this is you too, that in the moments that I find myself completely not in purpose, that I'm just going through the motions, right? There's this like big purpose of caregiving, right? That in itself is a whole thing. But once that becomes kind of this mechanical day-to-day thing that we're just, you wake up, you follow the day, you go to sleep, you wake up, you follow the day, you go to sleep. It's very repetitive. There's like a groundhog kind of mentality around it, Groundhog Day mentality. So to create a space that feels different, really feels different, and it feels challenging. And so I share that because the idea of creating a space that feels purposeful in a different way, and that really showcases something about you that is who you are, might be what your soul is also craving. And we don't have to do this in big swings and in sort of big gestures of, ta-da, this is me. But we can start right where we are. So I hope you will join me, not just as a listener, but as a companion, a kindred, a spirit in the wild, and a real and beautiful participant in this whole big, wild journey of caregiving. Caregivers in the wild. It would be so beautiful if someday there was like a way that we could really see each other in the grocery store, almost like a caregiver spidey sense, where you could just look at each other across the spice aisle and be like, there's a knowing. You're in this too, right? And caregiving comes in lots of different flavors. There's the full spectrum of what that means for different people. Some of us are sort of in the deep end of caregiving with diseases that are incredibly challenging to undertake. And others may have different levels of it, but we're all experiencing the same degree of challenges, especially the ones that tap deep into our heart and who we are. So let's just take a breath here, because before I leave today, I want to give us some reflections. And these reflections are designed to help us radiate from within. And I really believe that I have this core belief that I've been fostering over the past few years, that we are designed to radiate from within and outward. And most of the time and most of our experience actually is of information and energy coming this way. So draw a little stick figure. You can do this in your journal if you want. Draw a little stick figure and then draw a bunch of arrows coming towards the stick figure. These are all the demands, the pressures, the expectations, and again, the noise, the chaos from the outside world, how stuff just comes in. And then draw another little stick figure. And in this case, draw arrows pointing out. And this might seem like a simple change, but it's actually quite challenging and profound, is the shift that I think is one of the first steps required to begin to live from this whole place of, I am the center of my story. I am the center of my universe. And from you, the energy radiates out. You build the bridges and you connect out in the ways that you are. And when we are true to ourselves, that's naturally what happens. And of course, this is a day-to-day, moment-by-moment practice. So I want to give you a couple of Radiance reflections. And I really hope that you take the time to write them, if possible. Writing in your journal or on a computer is a really powerful way to move feelings. That's one of my favorite ways to move stuff when I'm feeling really like in it. So the first one is, where am I really right now? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And have the courage to answer it. Like, really. Nobody else has to see your answer. Where are you right now? take the filters off and just go for it. And the second one is, and what would it feel like to begin from this exact place without a... So when you write these down, or maybe you want to speak them out loud, or maybe you want to whisper it in the quiet as you cry or you scream. Cars are great for this, by the way, if you can sit in one for a while. But just start, because the truth is that we already have started. We're already walking the path. We might just have some fog that really doesn't let us see the truth of who we are. So I hope this felt supportive. I hope this felt nourishing. I hope you felt like the same sort of little butterflies of beginning something, anything, even if that is beginning to connect with yourself in a deeper way and finding a thread of purpose that really carves out who you are in the midst of all of this. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. And I will see you with another pause in our caregiver journey tomorrow. Be well, my friends. Adios.